Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Obviously, today I've got some guests. Ta-da! and we're going to be doing a recap of Montreal Audiofest 2026. And yes, my friends Rich and Troy here. If you guys would like to introduce yourself, Troy, if you go first.
Sure. Okay, so my name's Troy Joseph Crowe of Joseph Crowe Custom Audio. We're a manufacturer in Ontario. We've been in business for 8 years, and we do made-to-order horn speakers, and our kind of specialty is machining everything out of the solid hardwood. So we have a couple CNC machines here. I do all the design and all the testing, all the product development. All of our designs are completely exclusive. So I decided from the get-go that everything was going to be completely our own design. So we're not kind of reintroducing classic horn speakers, but coming up with modern interpretations of the genre of horn speakers. What else? So yeah, we have a website and we have a YouTube channel. And yeah.
Nice. And Rich?
Sorry, just fixing my camera.
That's cool.
It might be a little better. Hi, folks. That's something I say all the time. My name is Rich Zidel. I'm the president, CEO, shipper, receiver, and garbage man for Zidel Marketing. I represent a huge multitude of hi-fi brands across Canada. My company's called Zidel Marketing. I represent stuff for MoFi Distribution, all of their brands, and Hagel. And I'm located in Montreal.
Nice.
And I've been in the business forever, over 45 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
So a depth in the business and the industry on the side of marketing and that kind of thing. That's
the fun thing when I talk about audio is I say I'm old enough to have seen or heard, however you want to call it, everything.
Okay.
Vinyl, 8-track, cassette, MP3, CD, streaming, and vinyl again.
Yeah. The boomerang effect of trends and media.
Nothing pleases me more, other than the fact that I remember when one of my kids, I forget if it was Jake or Taylor, anyway, they're about 2 years old, and I came downstairs like to my listening room, and they were destroying some of my records. And I thought, okay, did I mention compact disc in that stupid list? That was another one, right? Mm-hmm. So they were destroying my records, and I thought, okay, well, CDs are taking over the world, right? So it's time to get rid of this. So I sold my turntable. That's not a big deal. Equipment comes and goes. I sold the records. So a record that I sold for $2, I just paid about $125 for.
Wow, that's yeah.
And I mean now I get excited if I find something that's $60. Oh, what a deal!
Yeah,
only $60. You know, it's crazy, but I love it.
Yeah, it's part of the hobby that's not always. I guess it's mentioned in a lot of vinyl collectors, like those who have had vinyl in their life and they've collected forever. I hear of, in some cases, say a family member or a parent or someone has passes, and they have a giant collection somewhere that then becomes into possession of a new person, and then you get to explore this whole stash of records, and some of them being like phenomenal and pressings that are rare, and it's it's definitely a sad thing to come into such a thing that way, but also amazing that they're preserved because of such a thing as well.
Yeah.
You can really learn a lot about someone by their music collection.
Definitely. True. I don't ask somebody what their star sign is. I ask them what they listen to. Like, what kind of music do you listen to? What are you into? What was the last thing on your playlist? And then how they talk about what they're passionate in. That's definitely. That's a huge thing.
And that goes to all those jokes, that you hear all the time. It's like, oh yeah, there's something wrong with my system. No, there's nothing wrong with your system. You listen to shitty music.
Could possibly be the choice in music. Yeah. I've had a number of different interesting, like, negative comments on videos already, and it's only been 2 or 3 days. And it never ceases to amaze me what kind of clever, like, insults people will try and toss in on top of an opinion. Like, it's one thing to say, I was underwhelmed, or this didn't sound good, or I expected more. Like, that's kind of, like, that's an opinion. But one of them that I deleted already was like, looks like fancy firewood. And I'm like, you're out of here. Like, that's
it never ceases to amaze me. There are two groups that I'm really active in. So audio all my life, and I'm a car guy. So I'm in a bunch of car groups. I have trying to think of the year, 2008 Miata MX-5. And I'll go into that. And this is supposed to be, for lack of a better term, a club, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be people with shared interests. We all love this stuff. And I'll get in there and they won't even crap on other brands. They'll crap on the series or version model that you own. It's not important, but there's A, B, C, and D series, right? I have an NC. So an NA guy will go, NCs, those are boats. They're horrible. They don't have it. We drive the same brand, same model car.
Yeah.
The only difference is the year. You really need to crap on me? But to your point, even better in audio. A couple of years ago, after the Montreal show, I was reading reviews, and one guy wrote, I was doing Wharfdale that year. I'm so glad I didn't go into the Wharfdale room. It sounded like absolute crap. So I replied, first of all, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And one thing that so many audiophiles don't seem to understand is there's nothing but opinion. There's no absolute that this is good and that's bad. It's I like this, I like that. I think this is pretty. I don't think this is pretty. But you confused me. How do you know that it sounded like crap if you didn't come into the room?
Yeah.
You obviously hate me or the brand.
Right.
Yeah. And that just boggles my mind. And when I look into the groups and I'll see, someone new, right? A newbie comes in and they'll ask a question, and then they'll get a host of insults. I'm thinking, that's how we help people?
Right.
You have to attack them? Or music. I do it jokingly for fun. It doesn't sound good because it's crappy music, but I will explain. There are good recordings and bad recordings. It's not the music per se. It's the recording. It just boggles my mind. Like, we're all human beings, and this is supposed to be a shared passion.
Right. Exactly.
Why is it adversarial?
Right. Yeah, it's a big red flag when I see it. I'm like, nah, around my page, because I'm a little more confrontational, people would say. I don't mind really digging in and like finding, like, questioning the logic of a statement like that, and said, well, how do you know if you didn't go in? It's a really valid question. And then I can accept, like I was saying, an opinion, that's cool, but to insult as well is like, nah, well, I don't want it around my page, and I don't mind stepping in to like remove someone, because it's not the community I want to foster. I don't want to give them anywhere to say that
place
stuff.
for that. It shouldn't have. So let's take Troy. What a great example. Talk about polarizing. Like, I talk about the Hi-Fi Rose RA180 amplifier, whether you know it or not, it's irrelevant. It's a steampunk. It's got all kinds of gears on it and stuff. And it's polarizing. There's no middle. You either love it or you hate it. And the haters are the ones who get on and leave all the comments. I'm thinking, if you hate it, move on.
Yeah.
I was once listening to Howard Stern, where a woman called up to tell him how much she hates him, how awful he is. And he said, you don't have to listen to me.
Yeah.
You
It's
can
like
listen to someone else. So I was thinking, Troy, great example. Your speakers, that's probably polarizing. It's probably love or hate. I don't know if you get a lot of people in the middle.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't actually get a lot of hate per se. Like, I don't experience it very much, actually. I feel as though the approach that I take is very objective. Like, we focus a lot on the measurements, test data. We tested dozens and dozens of drivers, and that seems to be a good formula for cutting through a lot of the cherished assumptions and dogmas in the hobby, where we can show, categorically that this driver offers similar performance to another driver. And so it's kind of shedding a light on a lot of the confusion in the industry. And I find that as an audiophile, you're really just left with listening to product A and product B and then coming up with commonalities. Like, for example, if you listen to 3 electrostatic speakers that you don't like, most audiophiles will just assume that all electrostat speakers sound terrible. I'm just using that as an
Good point.
example,
Yeah.
right? But if I measure a planar driver, an electrostatic, a compression driver, and a ribbon tweeter, and they all have similar performance, like if you look at the whole suite of test data, then you can't really, isolate one configuration, if that makes sense, and say this type of tweeter is bad.
It makes perfect
right.
sense.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. And I always, I'm sure you do too. I always decide I have to pick my battles. So what am I going to challenge? What am I not going to challenge? Because I have the reputation for being arrogant and sarcastic. And I am. Like, I've been doing this all my life, but I've learned to dial it back now, and I just have fun with it. But there was some guy who said, they use an AMT tweeter. AMT tweeters are bright.
Yeah.
And that was a great example because I said to you, and he goes, no, they're bright. I said, you don't seem
cherished
to
assumptions,
understand.
right? That's what
Let's do something. Let's not talk about audio. And I do this all the time. And I'll often use cars, and sometimes I'll use artwork, and sometimes I'll use color. So in this case where he said it's bright, I said, let's get something that's a blue-green. I'm going to call it blue. Joe's going to call it green. And Troy might call it something else. Who's right? Well, we're all right because we all see differently. We all hear differently. And as you age, your hearing changes as well. So it might be bright to you, or it might be dead to you, but that's to you.
Right.
Like when someone says,
interesting observation.
well, no, that's not the speaker, that's your hearing, sir. Would you like to do a hearing test?
A lot of it is false correlation, where they'll listen to something and they'll say it's bright, for example. But for example, like a really good compression driver has incredibly low distortion, almost immeasurable, and to the point where it almost sounds cold and clinical because it doesn't have like the classic second harmonic distortion kind of sweetening everything up. And what I found was, like, some of the best beryllium compression drivers, you actually need like a really good tube preamp to kind of warm it up a bit, which is so bizarre and when you think about it. But that whole kind of scenario could lead a lot of enthusiasts to conclude that, well, beryllium is bright, right? And it's actually the lack of distortion that that's causing that.
Right. So
really
like
well explained. And I often use the term perception. Oh, there's a cat in the background.
a few times I've been mesmerized. I'm like, that's an awesome feature. I need to get fish or birds or something. Well, I got one, but that's my logo.
Perception is reality. And I tell people this all the time. That is your perception.
Right.
Is your reality. But you can't make generalized statements like that.
Yeah.
And then to Troy's point, it's not, well, this sounds amazing because you put the tube gear on it to soften it. And that's cool. Because to me, all I care about, I say to people all the time, are you listening to music? Good. Are you enjoying it? Good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
End
We
of
can
story.
talk about all the gear you want. We can talk about all the different brands and models and all the gear that I sell. All that really matters is that you're happy and you're listening to music. And how you've achieved that, I don't care. If you want my help, I'm happy to do it. And that's where Troy just said exactly that. It's if you have this and you thought you liked it, but that's because when you bought that speaker, the shop was using $100,000 of unbelievable tube gear on it, and now you brought it home and it's incredibly bright. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's okay. We can deal with that. Now we're going to pick electronics to soften the edge,
Yeah.
I
unless
think
you
too,
want to change the speaker.
it takes patience to stick to something and not quickly dismiss it. I think, you know, it takes some experimenting and yeah, and you're right. Like you got to come up with your own preferences. There's the other end of those. You can swing the pendulum too far the one way where you're focusing too much on measurement, and at the end of the day, you're right. Like it's a purely subjective experience. So
Yeah.
I would
Subjectivity and
imagine, I'm almost certain you do both, right? You do
yeah,
measurements and then you do voicing by ear, I would assume.
yeah. So the very early stages of the design development is strictly based on measurement, kind of distilling down dozens of drivers to particular models that have potential to sound good. Because I can assure you, if there's pretty nasty peaks in the frequency response, you can rule it out as not as appropriate for hi-fi. And then once you have, you know, 2 or 3 drivers that measure and perform really well, like in an objective sense, you can then take that and start listening to it and figuring out whether it's something that you actually subjectively prefer. So, but it's important to look at the whole suite of measurements because it's not just frequency response. It's like probably 8 other test metrics that you have to look at as a kind of conglomerate. So
yeah, the subjectivity in the hobby as a learning experience is one of those things like as a community, and we were talking about cars and car communities and criticisms of things, it's a thing to me that stands out who has spent time or has the patience to learn how things go together. And that if they're criticizing, they haven't learned like the synergy of something
yeah,
and the
it's a
details or the
culture.
things they pick on, maybe a lack of education in that sense, not, you know, for whatever the case may be, either not experienced, avoided being experienced, or just like comfort in an echo sort of, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
back up to what you just said, right? Because I love it. Is audiophiles cling to a belief system,
Hmm.
very often based in nothing.
Hmm.
To your point,
It's personal self like reflection or bias is
they've just
usually what it
decided,
is. It's just
this is good, that's bad.
right.
Okay, explain, enlighten me. You know, I'll always invite them. Tell me, like,
Right.
what's
How did you come to this answer?
how did you come
What
to this
yeah.
conclusion? And by the way, you know, as I always state, we should never use absolutes, right? You know, maybe you love it or you don't love it. I don't know, but how did you come to that conclusion? And the funny thing for me is, in many cases, they haven't experienced anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going on, you know, what somebody said. Or the other thing that makes me laugh is I had a guy comment on someone's room. Oh no, that room sounds like crap. And I said, you're basing that watching the YouTube review?
Yeah.
Like, you understand you're not listening to that speaker, you're listening to the speaker on your phone or your laptop. Are you aware of that? And it's unbelievable. Anyway, it sounds like Troy wants to show us some, or it looks like.
Oh, that's not me. That's Joseph. But
Oh,
Yeah,
I have a question.
I started scrolling through some of the photos here because, like I was mentioning beforehand, a lot of my YouTube audience is not going to have access to the Facebook albums, or I mean, I think they should. It's the same name everywhere in media. If you want to see the photos, please follow the Facebook page and Instagram pages because that's where all these photos are. But yeah, just as we were talking about design and drivers and things like that, I thought, why not show the driver? Yeah.
Yeah. So that mid-range driver that you see there, that's point in case of where the subjectivity of a driver rules kind of has the final say, where this particular driver, it meets the criteria of excellent measurement within its passband, which is like 300 hertz up to 2 kilohertz for the large format mid horn. And its ultimate decision to select that is the musicality. And it's a paper diaphragm. It's a 5-inch paper cone. And there's not a single recording that doesn't sound good on it. And that to me is kind of something that I've had to decide on as a designer. Is it okay for some recordings to sound bad? Or should every recording sound good? And that was kind of the standard that I set for myself, was that no, I want to enjoy bad recordings and good recordings, and it still has to be enjoyable. So that was one of the key requirements.
Kudos to you for doing that. Here's another quick story. People often come into the room if I'm at a show, or they contact me, or if I'll chat with them at a dealer. And one of the favorite things that I hear is, oh yeah, your system's pretty good, but I just listened to such and such. It was mind-boggling. The detail was unbelievable. It was so good, I had to leave after 3 minutes.
What?
I said, because your ears were bleeding? Yeah, that's not a good system.
When somebody says that, I immediately think that they're kind of a younger audiophile that's just getting into the hobby. And that's kind of the one attribute that just does jump out when you start to get it up into the higher quality hardware, is the detail aspect. It's not anything we focus on anymore, really.
I'm proud of you for not focusing on it. I think that's absolutely wonderful. But I see it not just from newbies. I see it from seasoned people as well, because they have misconceptions. They think that hyper detail, which is not actually detail, it's just bright. They think that's better, even though they can't listen to it. And I always try to turn that around and say, in my opinion, and again, this is all just opinion. So if that's what you believe and it works for you, great. And if you can only listen to 3 minutes at a time, okay. You know what a good system to me is? It's when I happen to look at my watch and go, holy moly, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I've been listening since 8 o'clock. It's time for bed. That's a good system. If you
I do
are
feel
so
like there's a
lot
of products where that's they're like a one-hit wonder, where the one attribute that they're really good at is upper treble kind of detail, but then the mid-range is just recessed and the bass is bloated. But so that you kind of focus on the one thing that you know is really good. But I feel like when people hear an incredibly well-executed system, there's all these other attributes that they didn't know they were missing, right? Their current speakers are sins of omission, not necessarily sins of commission. And so you start to then, as a more mature audiophile, start to focus on attributes such as, mid-range expressiveness. That would be, or just simply the question of, does it sound real? Does it sound like a cello? So.
Right. Yeah, that realistic, like, for instance, you mentioned cello, and I have to say, Vincent Belanger plays his cello in front of the speakers in room, along with a track that has alternating featured instrumentation. So he'll change parts of his playing to match his own recording of his own cello on the recording in room. And when the system's playing in their tuned sort of way, it's almost indistinguishable.
Oh, it's wonderful. Actually, the first time he did that was with me in Montreal many years ago. It's a ton of fun. Yeah, and he's a super guy too.
Yes. Lots of fun in room. I'm always in there playing all kinds of weird music. And Daniel from Audio Notes, such a character, and he's always like, "What do you have this week? You know, what did you bring me? What CDs do you have?" And we're always demoing stuff. So that's one of my favorite rooms for what you say is like realistic musical expression. Always enjoy that.
Yeah. I think dynamics is another big attribute. You know, you're getting into the hobby, your speakers aren't able to reproduce the dynamics that are available from a good recording. That's another huge realization for a lot of people. Just, you know, I do a lot of live sound mixing, so I'm working with musicians, and you know, the actual level of dynamics from a snare is just completely startling. Like, so I feel like most audiophiles aren't really exposed to that. So
What a great point.
Yeah, what live instruments feel like. Well,
What live
I
music
played drums
sounds like,
before.
period.
Yeah.
Like I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, your system's this or it's that. You know, it should do this and it should do that." And I said, "Really? Just out of curiosity, were you in the recording studio?
yeah,
Because
I
if you
don't
weren't,
get
you don't know
too
what it's
many.
supposed to sound like." Sorry, go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma associated with horn speakers in particular, especially in North America, where they say that horns are shouty. And that's something that we've completely engineered out of the speaker. However, certain recordings have levels of dynamics that when it's reproduced into the room, it's loud. Like,
Yes.
how can you get away from the sheer power of like a choir, for example? Like maybe some people just subjectively do not like the dynamics that are offered by the actual instrument or the actual choir. They
But
want
you know,
it.
in many cases, they don't know that that's what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's
You know, and that's like I tell them, I said, "Please do me a favor, go to a concert." And
yeah.
if you don't have money, hey, you know, if you happen to be where I live in Montreal, we have this thing called the Jazz Fest. You can
Right.
go and listen to tons of concerts for free.
Yeah.
But my point is, go and hear what a piano actually sounds like. To Troy's point, go and hear what a choir actually sounds like. Do you know, you go into a church, it's not a recording studio. There's going to
Right.
be unbelievable echoes and decays, and it's all it's glorious, you know. But
Yeah.
you need to experience that so that when you now listen to this on a sound system, you can say, "Yeah, that's what it sounds like."
Yeah.
One, I was going to say trick. It's not a trick. Suggestion that Ivor from Lynn makes is he says, "Go listen to something." And then what I want you to do is now, if you're trying to buy an accurate sound system, sit down and play something that you've heard in real life. And then in your head, compare the piano in real life to the piano that you're hearing on this system. And when the two sound the same, that's an accurate system. Now, that's not what everybody wants, and that's okay. And that's what I tell people. If you're coming to me saying, "How do I buy a super realist?" Well, that's how you buy real. But you don't have to do that because, again,
Right.
it's personal taste. So if you like lots of bass and lots of whatever, that's fine. Then you don't need to do that. Then you go out and you just find something that sounds the way you want it to sound. Both are fine. But you know, with audiophiles, I just say, "Can you tell me which one it is you're trying to achieve?" That'll
Right.
help.
Right. Describing.
That tough nut?
No, this is I don't have the card. I should have the cards on me and brand names when I'm scrolling through
No, it
this.
doesn't
But
matter. It's just I
it's in
saw
my
blank.
it's in my videos, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And there's 5 of them posted now, so please everyone go and watch.
I will.
Front to back. Don't watch 3 minutes and go, "Oh, this was terrible." You'd be like, "No. Watch the whole thing and then tell me it was terrible." That's fine. Yeah, different brand. He was outside in the hallways here. Yeah, I was gonna say the idea of, for me, it's always education as much as you can learn, like more, like how to talk about it, what to talk about, how does the words relate to the sound, how to articulate a characterization of sound. It's all subjective anyways. But if it's like if each person had the vocabulary or word phrasing to describe what they're feeling, hearing, that kind of thing, it leads to better conversations, better understandings, better bridges between people of different opinions even. You can kind of get this sense of like, where am I in this journey? And talk about it, so it's easier to kind of say, okay, I see where you are and this is where I'm coming from. And like, yeah, there are frequency responses with numbers and digits, but we know the brain doesn't interpret it that clearly. The translation to feeling is through language.
I have my own well-established preferences on what I would like personally in a speaker. However, I've come to recognize that that's not for everyone. And so I actually have kind of 2 categories of products. One that's super neutral, refined, clear sounding, which is the 1695 open baffle. And it's not the final word on dynamics, particularly through the bass and the mid bass, but it is the most cleanest bass that you've heard. It's almost like a little bit like headphones in that it doesn't activate the air in the room the way that a horn would. But then there's the other product that's actually the similar price, similar physical size, and it's the 3154 10-inch backloaded horn 2-way. And that's completely designed for those that are looking for kind of the ultimate in dynamics, where they want to feel every undulation in the mid bass, and it actually, you can feel it move the air in the room.
Nice.
And so that's like, my preference is just unbridled dynamics. But some people, that's just not for them. They want it actually more subdued. So that's where the 1695 open baffle comes in, where it uses a 10-inch scan-speak woofer that actually is quite polite and a little more softer sounding, but still beautiful sounding by any measure. So
Yeah, that idea of learning I relate music and quality and like learning what you like in music and sound, like what the sound character you like. A lot of it I relate to food, because people's taste in food, you even use the same language in a lot of the cases. Sometimes we use a tactile word like sharp, a visual word like bright.
and it's the same for food.
Right. So
You
any
want your
of the
speakers spicy?
yes, chocolatey bass, whatever chocolatey bass is. I mean, so we interplay other sensations in the description of sound, and it's like, well, yeah, everybody's taste is different. So of course, even saying the words, it's still not going to be the same for every person. But I mean, you would be in the same ballpark there. I believe that it's all correlation in that sense. So it's like this language game we have to play, instead of it being criticisms per se. If we learn the translation, like looking at a whatever kind of a dispersion chart. I mean, I'm sure you know what I mean. Like if you see the frequency dispersion chart, you can. If you're looking at it enough and you hear it in room, then you can translate looking at the chart like, oh, this speaker might benefit from this much toe in, this much toe out, kind of it's on axis where, you know what I mean? You can look at it visually like we look at words and go, I can read this word. This is hippopotamus. And in our head, it's like we see this animal. So I believe that there's an avenue and that way with audio as well for any audience to kind of dive into, where it might be confusing at first, but so were words and walking when we were little babies. But we got there. So I do think that avenue is there if we keep the dialogue open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
And
know,
I do think it's important to actually expose yourself to every product that's available, within reason. Like, I get nervous when customers are interested in open baffle and they've never heard them, right? Because it, to me, is somewhat esoteric, and that they should hear a really good pair of open baffles before committing, because it is a particular sound character that they have to decide, do I like this, right? So
Yeah, I borrowed a pair from Mako. They have the 218. It's more like a full range on top and more of a lower end 18 on the bottom. 15, 18, 15?
yeah, 15.
I think it's a 15. I made the same mistake before and thought it was an 18. I'm like, I've never seen 18s before. They must be much bigger than that. So,
Yeah.
and I was quite astonished with their ability and wanted to do that. And I'm so grateful that I'm in this position where I can just request, ask, showcase, and then I can go through these experiences where I don't know that a lot of the audiences and people in the hobby have the same, benefits to learn and just experience stuff like that. So you're right. They are a unique character, and it really does. And I tell everybody, even in my videos now, I'm like, recordings are not good enough. You need to come to a show, listen to something in person, go visit your dealers, go set something up, go to a friend's place. You need to hear audio in person to build up your library of actual sound character. The videos are just really not good enough.
And I've experienced
Videos are wonderful introductions, and that's what I tell people. The show is an introduction. You walk around, you see things, you listen to things, and maybe you get an idea. Well, I liked this, I didn't like that. Cool. And then I tell people, please go to a dealer.
Yes.
Please go see and hear it in a proper setup. If your friend has it, that's wonderful too. But not enough people listen to enough stuff. And again, I'll do the car analogy. I know so many car guys. Well, I read Road and Track and I read Car and Driver, and everyone said this was the car, so I bought it. You didn't test drive it? Oh,
right.
Of course. So you test drove it. Don't you think you should test drive the sound system?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 1981 Mercedes diesel, and I can't explain why I like it.
Hey, like I say with audio, it doesn't matter why, as long as you like it.
Yeah, it's 120 horsepower, so on paper it should just be terrible, but it's the sound of the engine. It's a lot of other things, but and it's interesting. Like, back to the open baffle, there's some diehard open baffle fans that will never go back to any other speaker, and it's interesting that they again correlate open baffle with clean bass, which isn't necessarily true in every case, right? They've just had dozens of really bad bass reflex speakers, and so they've kind of solidified it in their mind that product A is not as good as product B, so
Yeah, that experience, I think part of what I'm taking on now as a responsibility in media is what I share. And I addressed something. I mean, Rich commented something on a post that I made, and I took it as a good criticism for where I am in the space and how I can incorporate that message, which was videos might mislead some people. And I totally believe that that's the case. It can be misleading because those types might not understand how different in-room sound can get compared to in-room recordings through the chain of recording material and all that stuff. So I addressed it in such a way and kind of addressed my own assumption and started putting that message in my videos. I'd be like, listen, these are just recordings. Here's the camera I'm using. The camera compresses the audio in the room, first of all. Then it gets compressed again through YouTube. So it's like, this is not going to be good enough. And to the dealer's benefit and to the benefit of the knowledge in general is go to shows, if not go to dealers and start to listen to this stuff in person, because the differences are going to be vast. And if you can't get to those experiences, I understand that a video might point you in a direction, but know that it's this and this and this as a reality. So I took that on as a responsibility. Being in media, being a review kind of person, I also want to lean hard on the education of it and speak the truth about, videos and recordings are great. I mean, I've got 2 condenser mics now that are pointing in directions, and they have binaural audio recordings that are even better, and some recorded albums are better. You know, we say recordings sound great, but the transfer from one recording through the media that we're using completely destroys it. It's funny how
you say that, but I listened to our room and I thought it was pretty close, like surprisingly close, I guess I should say, to the experience of being there. I thought that of any of the YouTubers that have covered that room, I thought I was like, oh, that's pretty good. You know,
So,
you can kind
the
of
video that I recorded.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
damn.
you can kind of get a sense of being there. Like there was the sense of envelopment of the sound and that, like it did capture that. Like when you walked into the room, it was like, yeah, that's pretty close.
Well, it's certainly the space of the room is in the recording. That's something like the character of what the room sounded like.
Yeah.
The time domain information, because it is a stereo mic on the camera. However, I mean the dynamics wouldn't be the final qualities. Not,
the
you know what I mean?
Range
but
isn't there, and then also like the upper treble detail, because obviously you got 2 types of compression. You got dynamic compression, and then the bitrate compression. Right. So those are hindering it. But yeah, you captured the spaciousness, I think, pretty good.
I can't wait to put my other camera recordings on there then.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Like when they talk about artist intent, well, there, folks, you just had the designer tell you that it was pretty damn close.
And I'll say, I won't say who else it was, but there was another YouTuber that did our room, and as soon as the song came on, there was just crushed dynamics.
Oh, wow.
Where it was like 20 dB of dynamic compression coming down on the vocals. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like they got to get something different, because it was just butchering the actual experience.
I wonder what it was that was. That's one reason why I like to put what device I'm using in every description. Say like I was using this camera with these mics, so that it's a reference point, at least in a data set, that whoever's watching the video.
It may not have been the mic. It may have been just the software, with an actual dynamic compression algorithm.
Right.
Software.
How whatever was recording it. Right.
Yep.
It's something I'm always trying to learn is, what does my phone do? What does this camera do? What does this other camera do? And then this weekend I had 4 different devices recording. I had my phone, my Osmo Pocket 3, I had Action Cam 5s, Action Cam 6, and all of them are going to have different microphone layouts, plus the software is going to be different for all of them. So now I can come away from the event with 4 different kinds of recordings in the same room, because I'm going around and around and around all weekend. So now I can get a sense of like which device records better for me at what quality, and then what's the result after I've edited or posted it as is. So I can kind of relate my description of the character in room through the camera I've used. Like this is what the camera did to it. Versus what was in room. Yeah.
Well, my feedback on it is you've captured kind of the total radiated power into the room with your mic setup, that it's more of an ambient capture. And I would say that's perfect. That's what you can get, but you're not going to get treble detail, you're not going to get dynamic, so don't even try, right? Like, I think the off axis and the character of a speaker is a big part of the overall timbral character of a speaker. So if you can capture that, I think that it's definitely providing information to the viewers on one characteristic of the speaker. So
Okay. That's good to note from multiple sources, like what is accurate and what isn't accurate in any kind of recording. Yeah. Any audience, I mean, they're curious about details. They're curious about, I get the most that I ever get is, how does it compare to this? I'm like, that's such a hard thing to answer, because in order to do it in a fair way, they have to be in exactly the same positions in the same room on the same day. Like if it's 20 degrees or 10 degrees or a couple of degrees difference, even in air temperature, it can affect some things, like some people would say. So I have to say,
thing to do when asked a question like that, personal opinion, is to describe differences. I try to stay away when how does that compare? Unfortunately, what audiophiles typically are looking for is, this is good and that isn't. Right? This is better. And I tell people, stop it. Stop doing that. Here's what this does. Here's what that does. Now go see which one you prefer.
yeah, it's not a ladder to it's not an ascension to the perfect.
Right.
right.
Perfect.
It's finding what you like and finding that alignment, right? And so
Yeah, it's like I was mentioning about translation of something, so that what you're hearing or listening to or whatever, how do you translate it to something that is meaningful for you?
in what way do you mean? I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Oh, so like sound of a recording. Pardon?
Is that what you meant? What speaks to you sonically?
Oh, no. So if someone's describing something, or if there's a recording that they're hearing, or a character that's mentioned or something, how does that input, how does it translate to something that's more meaningful? Like if subjective to subjective, how do these characters actually translate to me? Like what would I interpret? So if I'm describing what the differences are between certain things, do I relate to that, language? Do I know that vocabulary? What do these characteristics mean to me?
Well,
so if I say bright, then,
So that's what Floyd Toole struggled with at the beginning of his career when he was doing subjective and objective correlation. He would have individuals, or not, like a team of listeners sit down and listen, and they had to fill out like scorecards. But the first problem that he encountered was, what do these descriptors mean, right? They have to set up a common understood descriptor of certain attributes, right? Like it's like, yeah, we all have to agree that there's soundstage depth, there's soundstage width, there's envelopment. And so that's the first thing that they had to do, was come up with these descriptors that they all could agree on what it meant, right? And so that's actually what I use when I'm trying to describe something at the end of a blog or at the end of a video. I feel like those are, over the past 2 decades, become kind of generally agreed upon terms, that everyone can universally understand, because he was kind of the godfather of all of this. And
absolutely.
So that's generally all I use, is just those attributes of, clarity, and not get too far into the weeds on the nuance of description. Because I think most people will just be lost. It won't mean anything.
Yeah, I guess the trouble with a community that's linked through media is maybe not everybody uses that same basis, and that Floyd Toole sort of, I don't know if I can call it Toolean. It's not like Tolkien to whatever. That lore, that audio lore, isn't translated as much, or maybe is not as much as it should, because it was and is the standard for psychoacoustics and analysis, which is what we could all, I guess, agree on, unless it changes over time. There's more studies. I mean, it was a while ago. They're always doing new things in labs and stuff. So unless that language of sound is updated, maybe that's the kind of thing that a community that's in media sharing information about what something sounds like, we could use more of that language so that it's not a whole bunch of different terms confusing listeners and people who are trying to review something and make decisions. Maybe they're, like all of these other terms are too confusing, where we need to have that consensus propagated
heard of the KISS
more.
Principle?
Sorry?
Have you heard of the KISS principle?
Oh, yes.
So that is the most important thing, in my opinion, talking to customers. Keep it simple. I won't use the stupid portion, right? Just keep it simple. When people say, I'm not an expert, can you differentiate between my voice and his voice? You're an expert.
Exactly.
You're an expert.
Yeah.
Do you know what you like? You're an expert. We go from there. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I tell people.
In fact, I try to tell people, let's not get into too much verbiage. I can teach you all the audiophile terms. Who cares? Just tell me in your own words what you like, what you don't like, what you're looking for. Use whatever word you want. I'll figure it out. Sometimes I think we spend too much time looking for interesting technical terms. It's more, in my opinion, it's more about the connection to people and to music. My job is to connect to you so you can connect to the music.
Right.
So talk to me in a way that you're comfortable. Use the words that you're comfortable with, and that's fine.
Yeah,
now, if you want to learn, sure, I'll teach you all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
The more experiences we all have, then the easier
Nice lighting on that shot
becomes. This lighting, yeah.
Yeah.
They lit this room very well, and it's rare because some of the rooms in my opinion, what I'm trying to do, it's too dark. It's moody. It's great for listening like you would at home. So I get that. I'm challenged trying to get the right light.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like this year, I supported the rooms that I was in, but they weren't mine. So it wasn't my lighting, my setup.
Right.
And I like to see some cool lighting, make the stuff look fun.
Yeah, some of them really nailed it. There was a couple of rooms around the upstairs wings that had full room treatment, good lighting, good up lighting on the towers. Some of them were colored. They actually, a lot of the rooms that were treated actually ended up being some of my favorite rooms, and maybe that's just a character that I appreciate. Live rooms are not always my favorite. I find too much of the room is in it for me. And yeah, it was a mix. Some of them were way too dark. There's absolutely nothing I could do. I needed a floodlight to go in and actually capture pictures of anything, and it would be too disruptive. Or the flip side is in what I'm trying to do is the lens I would need to capture that low light costs about $5,000, and that's not happening. So.
Joseph, I kept the lights on for you super bright so that you could get some good photos.
No, you guys had those lights on full blast the whole time. It wasn't for me.
I was
But
getting
it worked.
I had to dim it on I don't know if it was the Saturday and Sunday. I turned the lights down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even for yourselves, this is the thing that a lot of guests don't realize is you guys are at the show for many, many days, days before the show opens, the 3 days the show's open, and a day and however long it takes after the show closes. So to be in those environments exposed to those kinds of lightings, I'm surprised some people don't even wear sunglasses inside because the lights are pretty annoying. And never mind that, too. Another big issue that came up through the weekend is, I don't know if you guys noticed, but did the hotel feel dry? Did you guys notice that it was like very dry and
Yeah.
staticky?
Hotels are dry, especially in the winter. I don't know if you noticed, we run a humidifier in our room.
Right. Many I saw was
Always.
a very good idea.
Always run a humidifier because it gets really dry and staticky.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I was showing electrostatic speakers.
So yeah, ideal to have a little bit of balance in there. That's something about the environment in the hotel. I just noticed that it was really dry kind of air. Now, I'm not going to get into the physics of dry air and sound. It's probably negligible for any of us to notice any difference, but I know that goes into some studies. Yeah, it's just something I noticed that you have to endure the environment. And hey, if you got to turn the lights down or make it moody, or if a song comes on, or, it's an environment thing. Like, I've heard that a lot of it is selling an experience, not just gear, which is why an environment and the time that you spend there can make a big impact on how you relate to the product or that moment, or and to that point is like, if you like it and that's something that you want to have, then sold. Like, no, there's no other argument to be made there. Whatever that takes, then you change environment and you do what you got to do to maximize the product exposure and give people an opportunity to enjoy the show while they have time there.
yeah. I found running a room actually is very similar to doing live sound mixing, because you're reading the people in the room and trying to understand, like gauging like the age demographic and gender and what they're going to want to hear next, and kind of keep them in the room. And it's the same thing with live sound mixing. You're looking at people's reactions and gauging, if you make a change on the soundboard, are they enjoying it more or less? Or,
Right.
so yeah, and it's exhausting. I was mainly running the room and curating the songs and picking what I thought would be good for the people in the room and changing it up all the time, different genres and that. But doing that for whatever it was, 6 hours straight, yeah, if you don't know, it's quite exhausting.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. That's something that I do want to repeat to a lot of people in an audience, is to say, look, it is not as easy as it might seem for the 10 seconds or a minute or 3 minutes that some people go through a room. To be like, oh, you're just listening to music all day. What could be hard about that? And be like, well, listen, if I have some footage from a local dealer, EQ Audio, and they host a gigantic room in Toronto with 5, if not 6 musical displays. And they go through an immense amount of manpower and effort to set all that stuff up. So I did behind the scenes footage of them erecting the walls, setting up the curtains, the lighting, doing all of that kind of work. Now, I don't have it finished, but it was a thing that was suggested then to say, hey, like, there's a lot of work that goes into making the show even happen that a lot of the audience doesn't even realize. So like, that's why I'm really confrontational a little bit about negativity and comments regarding it, because you all deserve so much more respect than to hear or even see that kind of shit, that I won't stand for it, because I know that effort, because I'm there, I've seen it, I've participated, I've helped out, it's a lot. And I don't like to see it, but I want to remind people and let people know, like, yeah, it's hours and days of really intense kind of getting it all together that makes that show happen for 2 minutes of maybe one demo song for someone.
Yep.
Yeah. So Troy, I was going to say, like, in how do you find the Montreal show? What did you think of the environment, the show in general? Like, what was your impressions there? This is your first time displaying there, yes?
Yeah, so we did Toronto for our first show was Toronto last October,
Mhm.
and we've haven't really even considered doing shows just because our main marketing has always just been YouTube and my blog. So we thought, well, let's try it and see what happens. And we did Toronto, and we had the smallest room. I don't know if you pull up a picture, it was our huge speakers in a tiny hotel room. But it still sounded really good, and
Yeah.
we got the Blue Note Award for Best at Show. And so Montreal was a last minute decision to go. For the reason we did it was just, I told my wife, I said, I just want to experience it. I want to experience having the speakers in a proper room and just see the reaction of people coming into the room. And we're really busy right now. We have work for the rest of the year. And so it wasn't like we needed to promote the brand any further.
Mm.
But it was just incredible to me on a personal level, being able to see, like, it was 2,000 people on the Friday and 6,000 people for the whole weekend, and all walks of life. That's the one thing that really kind of jumped out at me, is just how many young people, particularly in Montreal, and then also a lot of women as well. And they weren't just with their spouses, they were by themselves, right? And I thought that was incredible. So that was one thing that really stood out. Just the setup was very daunting because we've never really been to that hotel before. And so the idea of driving my SUV up that huge ramp that goes up to, I think, the fourth floor of the hotel, and then from there loading onto an industrial elevator and going up to the 10th floor, and actually having to figure out, I got lost in the laundry department at the hotel. I had to ask
You're
somebody,
not
I'm
the
like,
first person, and you won't be the last.
yeah. So that was a very rich experience for me.
Yeah.
I didn't
It's
have
the
any
most
idea where to go.
difficult
Like, I had
hotel
to,
to do a show.
it's just this discombobulated maze to get to the actual floor of the exhibition. So that was fun. But just setting up, I mean, I think everyone has hiccups along the way, and we had trouble with our router. We last minute decided to upgrade the power supply on our Wi-Fi router, and that ended up being a huge mistake because it didn't have enough current to actually power the router, and so it was constantly going into this reboot loop. And thanks to ChatGPT, I was able to troubleshoot and used my laptop power supply to power the router, and that fixed it. But that was hours of freaking out and thinking, okay, where's the nearest Best Buy?
Right.
So that was kind of like a 11th hour kind of fix. And then that was actually the day of the show. We
Friday
got it
morning.
up and running. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was skin of our teeth still, and that's what people don't see, right?
Right.
Like, there's always problems that you don't see, and we make it look like it's a perfectly executed thing. But
Yeah. As best as we can,
yeah,
something's always.
you try to predict, and you try to prepare, and you have doubles of everything. We had doubles of all the tubes. We had an extra quad set of 300 Bs and power supply tubes, and so but yeah, it was a really cool experience.
Nice. That is good. And Rich, from your experience this year versus any other year or just in general?
Been doing it, I think, from day one. This year was basically like other years. It went well. Every year, there's a nightmare. It's just the way it goes. Every time I plan a show, I tell whatever companies I'm working with, I want all the gear in Montreal 30 days in advance. I want to
Right.
make sure I can test it, run it in, do everything. I want to make sure I get it to the show. And no matter what I do, no matter what, every year there's something. So this year it was the quad electrostatics, the new ESLs, where I did the unveiling for North America of the new 2912X. And it was supposed to arrive 2 weeks before the show. It was a last minute arrangement with the dealer I did it with, Codell Audio. And it was supposed to arrive 2 weeks and it didn't. And then a week before and it didn't. And then I found out it was held up in customs somewhere. And then I started chasing customs and it ended up getting delivered either Tuesday or Wednesday. So the nice thing was at least the dealer had them and we knew we were going to have all our equipment at the show. Toronto in October, I was unveiling the new launch of Castle, and someone did something, and the speakers just didn't show up. And luckily, I had my own samples, so I brought those. The year before, I was doing something else that was the best one. I brought the speaker because I knew it wouldn't arrive on time, and the delivery company, the carrier, the transport company, showed up Sunday afternoon at 3:00.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Rich Zidel, yeah, here are your speakers. Yeah, don't worry about that. I've already taken care of it. But that happens at shows. I enjoyed it. It was fun. We got our setup done. Everything sounded great. We were happy. People were happy. And that's all that matters to me.
That's good. Yeah, that's another tricky part is logistics in general for most things. I mean, I went on a rant recently with some companies, deliveries or whatever services and online. I guess it's not as critical because it's not for a business and it's not for a timed event per se. But in general, I'm like, how is it that an Amazon delivery sort of service can be better as a newer company than some of these other carriers like UPS, FedEx? Like, how is it that their services are like tracked on time? There's verifications. You can vote immediately. How did this person do? Like, there's so many of these other things that are going on to like get something to you in such a way that they're better than some of the carriers. And it just blew my mind. But yeah, logistics in general, and I tell a lot of people this. Listen, if you're not into the hobby, you don't really get it. When you move something, it's not like moving hi-fi. You can move anything. You can move a couch, chair, suitcase, box of books. When you're moving, it's fine. You don't move hi-fi the same way you do anything else. You have to be another level careful about, is it upright? Is it tilting? Where's the weight in the box? And then do not drop it.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't just have to get there. It has to get there and be functional.
Right.
And that's why I am most stressed until the first note of music comes out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Once there is music playing from both speakers, then I can breathe a sigh of relief. And at that point, I'm like, we're fine.
Yeah.
Anything can be dealt with now, as long as I know I have functional audio. And that's always my goal.
Yeah, functional and in good condition. I've seen and heard stories about how shipping destroys certain things. There was it a couple events ago, something happened to the name statement amplifier in shipping, and one of them was destroyed. Part of the amplifier was like separated in shipping. So it was, and that's, I don't even know how expensive that is.
We sent a $400,000 pair of Piega MLS 2-piece speakers to an event, and someone whacked one with a forklift.
Oh.
You want to cry.
Yeah.
The box shows up and you think this is not going to be a good day. fingers crossed, and then you open it up and you see the giant gash and the dent. And it's now, when this is a show, that's why I said just let it play. If it plays,
Yeah.
I'll deal with it later. Right now, I just want to have good sound, and that's all I know. Just if it's damaged, please let it be cosmetically damaged, not performance damage.
Right.
That's the key.
Cosmetics is less of an issue when you're displaying something. Certainly for an audience all weekend, you can kind of do something. As long as it's playing, then that can work. It's devastating if you invest so much into a system and then something doesn't work or something fails and there's no backup, and then the whole weekend is just written off. That's terrible. I think I recall that happening to at least someone.
It happens all the time, and it's we plan. I mean, I've been doing this forever. I plan for next year as I'm walking out the door.
Right.
I reached out to Sarah right after the show and said, here's what I want for next year. And I start thinking, what do I want to do next year? Who do I want to do it with? I did the whole quad thing with the ESLs with Codell Audio. I had Hi-Fi Rose with Solo Tim. I had Piega with Hagel, because I also do Hagel.
That was a great room this year.
Pardon me?
That was a great room this year.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And I take great pleasure taking pictures with the Vikings because they're always like a foot taller than I am. That's always fun. And they're great guys, and they're great people. So, we plan everything. We plan the equipment that we want to do. We try to get the room that we want. We plan the music. We plan the aesthetics. And then we've got to do the logistics to get all the stuff there. And then we've got to get it set up. And then you hope it's going to sound good. And it's been many years since I have gotten the room that I wanted. Let's put it that way. So you get the room and it's not the room you want, and you haven't been able to test. Now you're there and you've got to make it work. And that's the big stress for me typically. It's just the minute I can get it working and sounding good. The first stress is audio. Okay, both speakers are playing. Fantastic. Now it's, can I dial this room in and make it sound good? If we can get there, everything else is gravy at that point. No problem.
Right. I mean, something like that I think that would benefit a lot of people in the audiences and in the hobby in general, is room tuning and how much, I mean, when you're in these shows, you see these rooms often, you can bring stuff in, you kind of have an idea where your bass line is, you can set it up in what would be a nominal position, but just setup in general, like where to place in a room. I mean, even Troy, your room, the speakers were 20 feet or more off the back wall?
Probably more, yeah.
Right, to get the right response, to get the right clarity in a room that's got no treatment, that's going to have lots of people sitting in it, or a very small room that's got gear between the speakers, an asymmetrical cabinet, and a bunch of other stuff on walls on both sides. Something to the effect of, if you guys can speak to setting the rooms up there, because they're hotel rooms, they're not perfect, and you've got to deal with it the same way maybe anybody would in a living room. Like, what guidance would you give, or what have you gone through to set these rooms up, and what did you find?
I've gone through a lot because I've been doing it for decades. And I mean, Troy's a bloody speaker designer. He knows what's going on. It's challenging, but you don't really have a lot of choice. So first of all, and someone mentioned it here, even with my glasses, Pixel Castle 6440, I mentioned something about the rooms being small looking. Yeah, they're too freaking small. We need to change hotels. They're too small. And it really annoys me is I had a room downstairs, and the way that the show works, and I respect it, is you have right of first refusal. So if you take room 1 in 2026, AudioFest 2027, you get an email, do you want room 1 again?
Mm-hmm.
And that's your chance to say, yes, I'm taking it, or no, I'm not. Unfortunately, there was a change in representation where I changed a bunch of lines and I gave up my room downstairs to the dealer that I used to do it with.
Ah,
And it's now his room. And I have been trying for, I don't know, 10 years
wow.
to get a bigger room. I needed a room 3 times the size of the room I had
Mm-hmm.
this year.
Mm-hmm.
Twice the size would have worked. 3 times is really what I wanted. And I couldn't get it. But you have to make a choice. Do I go?
Mm-hmm.
Or not go? And if I go, do I bring what I wanted to bring? Or do I bring what will just fit in the room? Now, this year, the whole plan was the launch of ESL 2912X. So that's what's going in the room no matter what. So now your only choice is, where's the opening? How does the door open into the room?
Right.
All right. Now I got to test the room acoustics. So am I going to put it on the wall furthest away from the door, or am I going to use the longer side wall? And then you have to figure out if you can fit your gear and if you can fit people in.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I did Toronto, there was a recording engineer who came into the room, and the review that he wrote was, this guy all obviously paid attention to room acoustics because I had set up on the long wall, which meant we weren't sitting as far back as I would have liked, but my speakers were able to be far enough apart. And that was important to me. So you have to look at that, and then you have to look at furnishings. Do I need to get rid of the TV? And that's a giant pain in the butt if you do pull it off the wall, which technically you're not supposed to do. So all of those things. So the room we're looking at now is so that's Piega with Hegel. And that's another example. That needed a room twice the size. We made it work, and we got some great commentary, but it should have been bigger. And that's my only complaint, is the rooms aren't big enough. And I don't know if you've noticed, but Toronto is moving to the Sheraton.
I did see that. It
So
was
the Westin is done.
Mhm.
And I'm desperately trying to get a big room.
right. Of course. I'm rapidly scrolling through all of these images here to see if I can spot your quad room. I should have an image of it. I did go around and capture.
I know you filmed. I don't know if you took. Oh, there you go.
I went around. I did a thorough checklist of every room the first day to get these shots, to get the whole system of every room. So at least I have these, if not everything else.
So if we go back to that for a second, because I'll talk about it. That's kind of interesting. This is a great example of where acoustically the long wall would have been a better choice. The problem is these rooms are so freaking small that if we went on the long wall, you can only have 1 row of chairs. That's it.
Yeah. So they have to accommodate groups of listeners rather than one person listening in one
you have
chair.
to decide what you're going to do. In Toronto, I don't care. That's what I do. So I have like 3 or 4 chairs, and then there's 2 on the periphery, and I'm going like, that's not for listening. That's just for sitting.
Right.
Listening, it's really not much I can do about it. And I would have done it here as well. The dealer I was with really wanted more seating available, and he really wanted people to see that it was quad when they looked into the room.
Right.
So that's what we went with. And that's another thing that makes me laugh. You're in a big room, Troy, so part of this wouldn't apply, part of it will. Thing that never ceases to amaze me is I'm typically, if you're looking at this thing, I'm standing nearer the albums on the right speaker on that wall. And I'm always looking at the audience, looking to see if they're enjoying what I'm playing, looking to see who they are, thinking about what I might be playing next. I'll jump around in the list. and I'm looking outside to see who comes in. One thing that I just laugh at every year is these people who stop at the doorway
Hmm.
and they
Yeah.
look like that, and then they take 2 steps in where they're still in that little hallway, you know,
Yeah.
you've got the cupboard and the counter or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they'll just stand there.
Yeah. 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 I'm not.
And I always look at them and like,
You can
come on
come
in.
in. Yeah.
Come in, sit down. That's what you're here for.
Yeah.
Are
And
they
I
are they
just
wanting
laugh.
to are they deciding based on what they hear so far whether they want to continue further into the room?
It's got it.
I don't
I mean,
know, and that's I ask them, you know, because look, I tell people, look, I'm here to have fun. So I'm going to make a joke, and if you can't take a joke, that's life. And it's like, I'll ask them, what are you doing? Are you evaluating whether I'm good enough? Because here's the
think so.
problem. Here's the problem. Speakers are designed to be listened to when you're sitting down. So you're standing up. Okay, you're hearing what it sounds like, but you're missing stuff. You're not getting the full benefit of the presentation, and it's the same price. I'm not charging you anymore to sit down. So sit down and then go, no, I hate this. Okay, great. Now you can leave. But don't stand there, you know, in the entranceway. Never ceases to amaze me.
I think I noticed there's a lot of people where they're on a clock. They're trying to hit as many rooms as they can.
That is true.
And they
Yes.
have like a pre-check. They come into that little corridor and they're like, does it meet the criteria so far? And to be honest, a lot of rooms I would run because from what I could hear just from that spot, it's not going to all of a sudden like lock into place when you sit down.
one
that's my opinion
one
on it.
room does. I will say
yeah?
there's one room that had a type of speaker that was extremely directing,
Mhm.
or whatever the word is.
Directional.
Yes,
Directional.
directional. That's
Like
the
focus,
proper
sweet spot.
suffix on the word. LeMay Audio. They have a stepped baffle that's kind of aimed in a focal point, and they have a horn in the middle. For whatever
Yeah.
reason, in my experience, they're towed right in at the first chair. It only sounds its maximum clarity to me when I'm sitting in the middle, and as soon as I go off axis, it's like everything is just lost. You can still hear it playing, but
Yeah.
I would say 80-90% of the performance is absolutely gone.
Yeah, when you turn an AMT on its side, it's going to have like a 10-degree listening window. And I guess that's the subjective side of speaker design. If you want to have that head in a vice, so be it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if that's what you're going for, more power to you. You can do
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
You
And
have
it
to let
can't-
people know.
It can be amazing. I mean,
Gotta tell people that's what this does. It was designed like that.
right.
And you need to be here to appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to address, I should
Oh.
make the screen bigger, Marbury Moo, about a
Yeah.
12 square meter living room. You can't give us the square footage, in this case, square meters. We need dimensions.
Yeah.
It's really important to know what the long wall is versus the short wall, or heaven forbid, it's a square room.
Yeah. That's why my comment underneath is we need more information of what you like before any answer will be meaningful.
Well, before they tell me what
Even
they
that.
like, I need the dimension is critical. The finishings are critical. You know, can we talk about this for a sec? Is that
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
I'll
so
scroll
this is
through some of the
something-
other photos in the
okay?
background, but
here's
totally.
what happens. I tend to be, I describe myself as brutally honest. So in the forums, I get really annoyed because someone will go on and hey, I've got a Hagel H600. What speaker do you recommend? And there'll be 7,000 response. Oh, I like the B&W, blah, blah. You should get the Focal this. You should buy the Joseph Crowe.
Right.
You should, yeah. And I'm the guy who responds, What are the dimensions of your room? What are the finishings of your room? Do you have hardwood? Do you have carpet? Do you have lots of windows? How tall is the ceiling? Tell me everything there. Now tell me about what all the other equipment is. And then after all of that, now tell me what you like. Are you a bass maniac? Are you looking for balance? Do you listen to music? Do you ever go anywhere? Have you heard anything you like? Too many audiophiles and groups, they follow human nature. We all do. Audiophiles want other audiophiles to own what they own because it justifies their purchase. It gratifies them, and it also makes them feel like they're an expert.
It reaffirms their previous
Correct.
decision.
It reaffirms their choice. You know,
Yeah.
and I understand that. But again, as we were talking about all of this, is sometimes they'll look at, well, no, good is good. No, that's blue to him and it's green to him. You still don't understand that? Let's try something else. And I actually made someone laugh who wanted to kill me. That happens a lot. And in this case, I made them laugh. I said, you don't get it. Let's shift away. And hopefully I'm going to make you laugh. Maybe I won't. This is my wife, Linda. Should I have married her? You don't know if I like blondes, brunettes, or redheads. You don't know if I like skinny girls or big girls. You don't know what Linda's personality is. You don't know what you don't know anything.
Right.
And you're going to now suggest what's right for me? So, that's why my point here is in all those groups where I see people asking that question and providing no information. Yes, those of us here on this call right now, are experts. Audio Boy 154 in Canuck Audiophile Maniacs, he might be an expert, or he might think he's an expert. And that's the worst thing.
It's often helpful.
I played trumpet in a couple of bands in high school, jazz, classical, whatnot. And my conductor used to say the same thing. He goes, I worry when you think you know something. When you think you know the music, when you think you know the intonation, when you stop reading it, that's when I worry. And that's my biggest worry in audio, when someone who thinks they know a lot about audio starts talking about it. I represented a company, I won't mention who it is. I did not like the owner of the company. We were chatting about the Quebec market. And he said, well, I know Quebec, I've been there. And I burst out laughing. I said, you think because you visited here once, you understand who we are? You don't.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at audio guys, now you might have a friend, the expert friend, right? Or you might have someone who actually does know a lot. But I laugh when I see comments in groups where someone asks a question and they just immediately, oh, you should buy this, you should buy this, you should buy this. You didn't ask this person anything. And you're throwing out recommendations. You can't do that. Or the opposite happens. I went as a consultant on a job and I said, speakers should go here, speakers should go here. Well, she doesn't like that. She wants it over there. Why did you call me and why are you paying my fee? Let me explain. You go to a surgeon, you go to a brain surgeon to have a tumor removed. And the brain surgeon says, you're going to be okay. I don't want you to worry. We're going to make an incision over here. We're going to pull the little thing out. You're good to go. Do you go, yeah, I really like it over there. I'd like you to do it over here. Do you do that? I don't think you do.
It's interesting.
Why?
We offer, sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's it. Go ahead.
We do a lot of DIY plan sets, and there's kind of a thriving community of DIY enthusiasts. So I decided from the beginning that I would share a lot of the kind of IP and the 3D CAD files and a lot of the design work, kind of recognizing that there's a wealth of knowledge out there of very seasoned enthusiasts that have already done testing of their own and have come to some very solid conclusions. And so I think it takes a certain level of humility to recognize that you can't think of yourself as like the master craftsman that's figured it all out. I benefit tremendously from people giving back to me in terms of ideas and technical solutions, or even something as simple as pointing out a particular driver that just became available on the market and helping me kind of guide along the design development process. So yeah, it's pretty dangerous actually as a business owner to be self-conceited, I guess, that you have it all figured. It's a journey. I have very, very seasoned customers where I have to like just like humble myself and say, okay, these guys have been doing this for like 50, 60 years. They know like what actually makes a difference, what doesn't, and what they like. They're very developed on their own preferences, and so I can lean into that and learn and understand it more. And so that's just want to share that there's a community aspect where it's a give and take.
Yes, but certainly when it comes to knowledge and how much there is out there, like you said, if you even remotely think you know it all, that's got to set some alarms off. And be like, hold on a second.
Some of them do. There are, to Troy's point, there are some of the people out there do have lots of experience and want to share and help. And there are a few guys on the groups that I look at that actually do try. But my point is, for those people asking the question who don't know anything, make sure the expert that's answering that question is actually an expert as opposed to a self-professed expert.
Yeah.
Credentials. Like, if you're going to start throwing out advice, I'd just like to know, like, who are you and what do you actually know? And that is my point. If you're Audio Boy 154 and you bought a sound system last week and now you think you know everything, you might not. Maybe you do. You probably don't. And I encourage people shopping for a system or looking to upgrade or what have you is seek out people who actually know what they're talking about, as opposed to people who think they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, or sound like they know. Like that thing about correctly, with an education and philosophy and arguing, which is kind of both good and bad sometimes for me, setting up or challenging a statement in the correct way for the purpose of furthering knowledge is like when someone makes a statement, can they verify that? Can they back it up? Can they say something else? Especially now with like Google and online and videos and AI helping people that, make them look even smarter. All they do is ask a question on the side and then they just regurgitate whatever the program fed to them. Anybody can sound like they know what they're talking about, but on the receiving end, my caution to people who genuinely want to know and genuinely want to find out, that you have to learn how to follow up questions so that whoever's talking to you about something that's expert, and it's tricky because sometimes the unknowing don't know what to ask. I get this in management at my company all the time is like, well, just ask whatever you don't know. I'm like, bro, I don't know what I don't know. So how am I supposed to ask you what I don't know? Like,
Well,
you
this is
tell
my
me.
point in audio. People starting
Yeah.
out, or there might be people who've been, buying and selling for years, but they don't know the fine details. I do this for a living all day, every day. Troy designs bloody loudspeakers all day, every day. There's some experience. You may not like me,
Hmm.
and that's fine. So go talk to someone else who knows a lot. And I do that all the time. I say, if you're shopping, go to a couple of shops,
Yeah.
find a place that you're comfortable with, that you like, and then and get a recommendation if you can, and then listen to them because they probably know what they're talking about. If you're lucky enough to have a friend or someone on a forum who actually knows what they're talking about, that's great. It's just been my experience that so many of them don't.
Yeah. That.
And they're throwing out advice and ideas, and it's
Yeah.
incorrect.
Maybe I
Yeah.
don't appreciate that very as much as I should. I can spot a hack from pretty far away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe other people, they're not experienced enough to know kind of the red flags of a hack.
No,
Right,
they're
yeah.
not. I mean, I went to calibrate a system for somebody, yeah, and they went on and on and on about how they paid this guy who showed up with a microphone and a computer, and anyone can download Room EQ Wizard for free.
Boy, that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've
Oh,
seen
trust me, I know.
customers go down that and they're pulling their hair out and they're almost suicidal because they're
Yeah.
trying to flatten their room to a
So
microphone.
you don't know what you're
here.
doing. This is going to make it worse.
Yeah.
And
Can.
I've gone into a room where I just, they're telling me I just paid this company, blah, blah, blah. And they did this room treatment. I said, whoa.
Kenny, is that you?
I should hold up. I have a Kenny Award on my. I'd have to.
Oh, amazing.
I'll send you a picture of it later.
Sure.
Anyway, it sounded like a padded cell. Yeah, I said, look, I don't know who did this. I don't know what they did it with. I'm just going to tell you, it's not what I would have done. And if you'll let me change it, I'll change it. And then I have this ongoing discussion, which is really an argument, but we'll call it a discussion. A super nice guy who I spoke to, and he was going on and on about how he tuned his room with mini DSP. And it's amazing, and it corrected. And I said, I'm sure it did. It corrected the rattle that you had in the corner over there, and it erased all of the harmonics and all of the fun stuff in the music at the same time. And you don't know that. And I said, and that's again where someone can show up with equipment and gear and you see, and it's better. And the problem is, and you listen to it and it's different, and you go, oh yeah, so it's better. No,
Yeah. Difference. Right.
you need to take a step back and remember what natural is. The greatest analogy I can use is calibrating televisions. I did a lot of home theater, and I calibrate home theaters, and I actually trained at Lucasfilm, which is kind of fun. That's another story.
Awesome.
But a fun story, I'll tell it again, and it pertains to audio. So when calibrating a TV, if someone, I don't care, they use computers, software, colorimeter, whatever they're using, doesn't matter to me. Go up to the screen. Say, put a human being on, and I want you to put your hand up next to the screen. If the screen looks like a cartoon, if the person on there looks like Fred Flintstone, or actually, well, no, I shouldn't say that. There's a certain president who happens to be orange. It's a great example, though, is if the person on the screen is orange and your hand is not, that's not natural. This is. Therefore, that calibration is not natural. Now, once again, as I always say, There's no right and wrong. There's what you like. So if you don't like natural, if you like what the setting in the TV calls vivid, which is cartoon, okay. But that's not natural. This is natural. If I calibrate it, I go for this. Then I look at you and say, do you like that? Do you want more or less of something? We can do that. Same thing should happen with audio. These guys who go in and just with computer and microphone, oh, there you go, it's perfect. Did you listen to it?
Right.
One of the most influential books for me was Floyd Toole's his book on small room acoustics. And it's interesting that as a speaker designer, that was the most insightful book, because it helps you realize just when you're in when he says small room acoustics, it's just a normal listening room, but just understanding what matters and what doesn't, and how our brains are actually able to interpret all of the reflections into the room and process it, and it kind of really narrows down what with a speaker what matters and what doesn't. And so it's point in case, like you could measure a room and do room correction until it's perfectly flat, but our brains are any correct for all of that. The primary, secondary reflections in a room, our brains are incredibly advanced, especially compared to a single microphone. So it's
absolutely. Yeah, knowing I think I've said something that's advanced for some people as a piece of advice, which is using your ears to hear like phase relations in positioning. Like if you see, I'll sit in a room and I don't know that some reps or whatever have seen me do this, but I'll sit in a room and I'll move forwards and backwards a little bit and just move side to side just to find out kind of like how big the sweet spot is, like where the phase, and I can hear it changing every inch that I move my head. I can hear this kind of sound. And I've been doing that for years and years with just my ears, is recognizing what my ears are actually doing with sound in a space. And sometimes it's also like hearing something at home that is really annoying but out of place, and be like, what is that sound? And you like tilt your head like a dog and you're like trying to figure it out, and using like not echolocation, but using time domain signals in my sound perception to figure out where something like a cricket in the house, and be like, where is this coming from? Or like when you're going for a walk and a police car or something's coming from an angle, but it's actually bouncing off a building, and you got to figure out in your head, like, which direction is this car coming from right now? Using this time. And that's just years and years of just, what is my own brain body doing right now? And then how can I use that in my own pursuits in audio, right?
There's two things I want to say about that. The first thing would be, when we measure the on-axis frequency response of a speaker, you should be able to move 5 degrees off axis, measure it again, and it should be perfectly identical, except for maybe half a dB to 1 dB down in attenuation. A lot of speakers, you just move 5 degrees off axis and it's a jumbled mess. You have both frequency responses like interweaving one another. And that's because of the edge diffraction occurring, where there actually is a difference in the sound. It changes. You just move your head slightly and it changes, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing is, going back to Floyd Toole's studies, when that sound leaves the speaker, there has to be obstruction free for about 1 millisecond, which is about a foot. After that, if there's other reflections that occur, like say you have your amplifier sitting on the component rack, if the sound hits that amplifier, reflects towards you as a primary image or a primary reflection, then if it's after 1 millisecond, then our brains can process that and actually interpret it as a reflection. But if you have an object right near the speaker baffle that's like 6 inches away, and there's a reflection off of that, then that our brains can, it's so close to the primary sound arrival that it is interpreted by our brains as a smearing of time, and it blurs the overall detail. And the other interesting thing is like the seat back, it's 6 inches from your ear. And so there's actually going to be the direct sound from the speaker, and then like half a millisecond later, there's going to be the arrival from the reflection off the seat back. And that's something that bugs the hell out of me.
That's why my chair
This is not
mesh.
That's why it's mesh, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I bought
So like
I
not
bought a specific mesh chair
yeah.
for my listening out here, so that there's less reflection off this material. It just breathes through it. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm very sensitive to openings in the room where like there's an open doorway where it feels like a black hole in the overall sense of spaciousness. Because I feel like there's all these primary and secondary reflection images coming towards you. And if there's just a doorway, then your brain's expecting there to be an image there, but it's not. And so I just find it like it really affects my ability to just listen.
Yeah.
For those listening who have no idea what we're talking about, I just want to, I'm sure anyone who's listening, following along, you've heard the term, we treat first reflections. That's basically what, I'm simplifying this, but that's basically what Troy is talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what we do when we treat a room for acoustics. And it's really important. It's another audiophile thing. I have this on my website, and I don't know if it's true, but it was so good, I put it there anyway. And it's a picture of, okay, I'm having a senior moment.
So when you say treat,
recording art engineer Alan Parsons.
I'm gonna try and find a photo here to help kind of walk us through it.
So the picture I have is Alan Parsons, and the quote from him, it was, "Audiophiles think nothing of dropping $10,000 to upgrade their amplifier, but would never think of spending $1,000 tuning their room."
Right.
And the $1,000 tuning your room is the first bloody thing you should do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going to hear your gear in its glory until you treat a room properly.
Yeah.
And there are many who over treat.
Yeah.
I don't know what this room,
This was
I don't know what it sounded like.
amazing to me.
It looks okay from a treatment perspective.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So
it's more than I would think was required.
Yeah, it was
but
super
at least they're
super
using
quiet.
a diffuser as well as an absorber.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. And again, for people watching, listening, who have no idea what we're talking about, to make it really, really simple, a hard surface panel is a diffuser. So that would be the white one with the lines in it. That's a combo. It's a diffuser with an absorption in those lines. And the back wall there with that gray styrofoam thing with all the different shapes on it, that's a diffuser. Whereas the soft light gray panels, those are absorbers, or they do absorption. And that's something that I laugh at when I see people who have treated their room. I'll look at their room and it's all hard surfaces, hardwood floor, glass, gyprock. And so when you have a lot of hard surfaces, you want absorption, the soft pillow-like panel. You don't want a diffuser. And then I'll see they've gone out and they've bought 8 giant hardwood diffuser things.
Yeah.
And changed my life.
It changed for sure, but
and that's my comment. I'm sure it changed.
Yeah.
But I don't think it changed in a good way.
Right.
And what you're hearing is different. And again, human nature is different's good.
Yeah. Like I just spent all this money. Different is
You're
fine now.
and they don't process that it's not a good change. And I'm saying all of this once again to, hobbyists. If you want to DIY and do everything yourself and learn School of Hard Knocks, that's fine. More power to you. Otherwise, I would strongly suggest talk to someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Let us help. I mention it on my website. I mention it on all my social. I'll chat with you for free. I'll give you advice for free. I won't come to your house and spend 2 hours consulting for free. But if you want to knock me out, like whoever here was asking a question about a 12 square meter,
Right.
that's a cool question, man. You can call me, you can shoot me a message and say, here are the dimensions, here are my surfaces, what do you think? And I'll give you a bunch of info for the joy of it, because I want you to have a good sounding room. And all I'm trying to say is just, when we're talking about all of this stuff, room tuning,
Yeah.
get help. If you don't know what you're doing, please get some help.
Yeah. It's room treatment and proper speaker placement are the two things. I think it doesn't have to cost a lot. It could be very basic,
So
seriously
let me cut you
basic.
off there, because that's a really important point. Room treatment doesn't need to be a bunch of expensive panels.
Yeah, absolutely.
An area rug on a hardwood floor is room treatment.
Yep.
A soft sofa, as opposed to a hard leather sofa, is room treatment.
Yep.
A plant is a diffuser.
Yeah.
So you can treat your room without it looking like you treated it. Or you can do a combination. You might have, I've got a couple of plants. I have soft sofas. I also have some acoustic panels, because my room is wood paneled walls and brick walls and a patio door in the back, and it needed some help. So I did what I had to do. But it can be done in lots of different ways, and it can be done on the cheap if it has to be, or it can be done with more money if the money's there.
Yeah.
But what I always tell people is, just get a sound system and listen to music. You know what? Yes, of course. Troy makes some beautiful stuff, and he doesn't give it away for free. I don't give my stuff away for free either. So yeah, sure. I have $10,000, $60,000, and $300,000 speakers. I also have $300 and $600, or $700 speakers that are awesome. You should never be embarrassed about budget and not spending money. I like to say to people, you should be embarrassed if you don't have a sound system.
Yeah.
Just
at least
get music. I don't care if it's an all-in-one speaker.
right.
Get something and enjoy music.
Yeah.
And then if you want to get a sound system, don't be embarrassed about the budget. And if you go somewhere and they make fun of you or give you grief about the budget, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's their problem, not your problem.
Exactly. What we should be doing is, when you walk in, and by the way, let me say this now, is when a good shop asks you for budget guidance, it's not because they're looking to spend every penny you have.
Right.
It's because they want to respect you. If you have a budget of $1,500 for your sound system, I really shouldn't take you and put you in front of a $55,000 speaker. There's no point. So it's okay to share your budget as a guideline, and a good shop will respect you and work with it. And let me tell you something, you can get some fun sound at any price point.
Absolutely. That's to that point, that's a pair of kit. That's a kit bookshelf and a kit subwoofer that the Celine Audio offers. And this system, these amps cost maybe under $200.
Yeah, it was incredible, the cost proposition there with the.
I bought a pair. I bought the kits just to see as a comparison versus the other stuff that I have coming through here as a proposition for the purpose of encouraging people to say, like, look, this is entirely possible. I'm going to show you how possible it is, and it only cost me like $250.
So it was a kit,
And this is what I'm trying to say.
and it included like the enclosure or just the drivers? Or
Yeah, flat pack.
flat pack. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So not
Yeah.
these.
Is
These are.
it all SB acoustics?
I think the drivers are both SB acoustics.
Yeah.
I have other photos and videos somewhere. There's a clip already of the pieces on a table.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's veneered. These are finished,
Yeah, it's a
which will
smart
be able,
design
but
with the sealed sub and, augmenting the bass and not
yep.
going ported and keeping it simple.
Yeah, it's a sealed
Yeah,
sealed powered sub vented cabinet
not overly
bookshelf.
powerful. It's
Yep.
yeah, it's
Very
a
very
very kind of
basic and
targeted
yeah.
for both the budget and also like the listening goals, right?
Yep.
Like a yeah. Back to the kind of the discussion of room acoustics. So, and also ties into like with the subjective listening and what we ultimately prefer. With coverage pattern, we have really kind of dialed in that 120-degree listening window is about ideal, which is actually quite wide. Most horn speakers are around a 90-degree listening window,
Mhm.
but we found that by widening that out to 120 degrees, we're getting a stronger uh, sidewall reflection, and it's about right in terms of like the ratio between direct sound and reflected sound in the room.
Mm.
And so it's providing like a really wide sound stage, but not compromising the level of clarity that can be on offer by having really good direct sound. Because I think if your room acoustics aren't up to snuff, um, the worst case scenario would be to put like an omnidirectional speaker just to exacerbate the issue,
Mm.
right? So by controlling the coverage towards the listening position, you really kind of minimize the interaction of the room, especially with flutter echoes and those types of things.
Right.
So the tricky part with speaker design is that you can have 120-degree coverage, but how low down into the frequency range does that coverage work? Because there's going to become a point where the mid bass and the bass just becomes omnidirectional in the
Right.
room,
Right.
right? So our goal is to try to create that pattern control as low down into the frequency range as possible, which really helps with the room acoustics. Like if you have a trouble spot in your room at 400 hertz, for example, if your speaker is providing great coverage, like controlled coverage, I should say, down to 200 hertz, then you can almost ignore those room problems because the speakers are not activating those modes because it's directed at the
Right.
listener predominantly. So that's a major factor, I think, in the overall discussion about room acoustics. We we like rigorously ensure that the like if you measure the speaker 45 degrees off axis, the frequency response is perfectly identical, just attenuated down compared to the on axis. So that's our goal, like from a measurement side. And I think it paid dividends for us when we went to Toronto. I was really paranoid that our speakers were going to sound bad in that little tiny hotel room. So much so that we brought with us, I think, 20 acoustical absorbers, thinking
Oh
that we're
wow.
just going to have to go nuts. And because I had watched from the previous Montreal Audiofest, Thomas Tam
Hmm.
was with Pearl Acoustics, and they were up till midnight trying to get the room to sound good at the
Hmm.
Montreal Audio Show 2025.
Yep.
And like they made like a midnight decision to like move the system to the long wall. And that was when everything fell into place and they were getting good bass and good imaging and everything. So I was like thinking, oh man, what are we going to be up against when we go? But we found that when we put the speakers, and this was the 2087 speakers, the huge ones. When we put it in that little hotel room, it was great,
Hmm.
and we ended up like actually just taking out all the acoustical panels and putting them into the hotel room next door, and just leaving the room completely live. And I think that kind of was reaffirming to me as far as the technical side
Hmm.
of making sure that the power distribution into the room is a flat frequency response that has controlled coverage. And so when we went to Montreal, I wasn't worried at all that we were just going to put the speakers kind of where my gut told me would be the best spot. And we actually, where they were at the show was the first place that we put them. And I was completely happy with the sound that we were getting. So
That's knowing your product, what it's capable of, and then eyeing the room for its space and dimensions, and then picking the best place
yeah,
based on this information that you have. That's really great that it works out that well on minimal amount of effort. And even though you bring the ready, you have things to deal with based on other previous influence or whatnot. There's possibilities you could need it. It's good to be ready, but then also having that knowledge, like how they're going to perform. You've had them measured. You have the measurements versus the room. I mean, physics is king. I say this all the time. Like, physics doesn't care about your feelings. Physics is going to be physics, and it's up to you to dance with it because it's not going to
yeah.
care.
I would say that we were pretty lucky. There was some pretty big trouble spots in that room. Apparently the room we had, the St. Lawrence 5, it measured 25 feet by 60 feet. So it was almost like a hallway.
Wow.
And the ceilings were quite low in certain parts of the room.
Yeah, and they're always like asymmetrical and weird box shapes,
Yeah.
and yep.
So there was some mid-bass problems that were like, boy, you could hear them on certain tracks. But I felt like on other tracks, it actually worked to our advantage because those room modes were actually, I don't even know if they'd be room modes. They were actually contributing to this kind of ethereal hall effect that was
Right.
actually more subjectively enjoyable. Like I was thinking of the one track, Wicked Game, Chris Isaac.
Oh, amazing.
His vocals were deep and it was kind of borderline to me, where it was kind of a really neat experience to hear it almost completely like envelop you, and kind of a spooky sound,
Right.
right? But then I'm not sure if it would be for everybody. Like certain audiophiles are really looking for ultimate clarity at the cost of everything else, right? And so may not be for them, right? So
Right. Yeah, it was a very open, spacious sort of thing. So I think like tracks that I remember hearing there, what is that? It's like it's in the same 20 tracks I hear in every room. Bryston plays it on repeat all weekend long. I think it's
is it male
Dire
vocal?
Straits. I think it's one of the Dire Straits one where it comes in with that kind of twangy guitar and it's really reverby. It works in that space because the space is already kind of live like that, and the room and the track play together well because the room in where the speakers were set up, it wasn't destructive interference. It was like harmonizing interference, if that's a thing. It sounded like it worked because it enhanced that extra space in the music. And if the song didn't have much space, it gave this extra depth to the song with the room like adding in, like, so if it was playing in it is carpeted, so it's not going to bounce in one direction, but it did work out well. I think it actually sounded good.
Yeah, there was a little bit less intimate, like if you're a resolution king, the room was definitely the bottleneck. We were offered after the show to rent acoustic absorbers, and I'm curious whether that would have helped or not, right? Like it was I think people, when they stepped in to the room, there was this relaxing feeling, and that was a lot of comments we got. I feel like if we had over damped the room, it might not have had that same experience.
Right. Yeah, it was I mean, it was that there was a couple of demo tracks. I mean, even in the quad room, Rich, there was some songs you were playing. I mean, both your rooms had this effect. I think the quad room in that sense gave that intimate sort of closeness. I mean, they loaded the room so well, and then being ESLs and your electrostatics, it was really great for that kind of feel. So it satisfied my enjoyment of that, like near field studio, no reflections, just the speakers and whatever I can get out of them. It was
We had no choice. I mean, that was a freaking small room.
right.
So as I was saying, it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a little more air,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to work with what you've got.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
electrostats
it
are
wasn't
a
mine.
reference point
It
for
wasn't my
us.
room. Codell took it. Sorry, go
Okay.
ahead.
I was going to say, we had ER Audio here. They make a large format electrostatic panel, and the level of clarity from that was like a benchmark that I try to attain as a horn speaker. That's really tricky to do.
Electrostats, do something in the mid-range. Look, and the highs as well, but really in a lot of the mid-range, up and down the scale, it's really hard to beat. And I was really happy with what we achieved in that room, going for the more intimate presentation because of the physics of the room. But what I'd like to do at the next show is have a lot more space so I can still do the sweet sound and I can still have focus, but with the proper amount of air around.
Yeah.
I want balance. I want both. So here I traded off. It was intimate. It worked beautifully. I was thrilled. I think lots of people were.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have space. I had a room like yours, Troy, a few years ago, and I said, it's too big. I'm not doing that again.
Well, when we had these panels here, the treble dipped down to less than 1 ohm, and we had a 1700 watt amp on it, and it still wasn't enough to generate like what I would call concert level SPL. So is it not a technical challenge doing electrostat in a larger room? I don't know your
No,
product.
not at all.
to know.
Every electrostat panel is different. People, I enjoyed the entire show because people kept saying, "Where's the sub?" As electrostats typically do not produce bass. Well, quad ESLs do.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Like that a couple of those tracks you had on there were just like massive, and you would explain what got in the video. The rel subs were put to the side because people were like, "Oh, well, they're the subs are on or whatever," but they were turned around backwards with nothing connected to them. There's no subs on, and those speakers were so good.
I'll give you the story on that is because the speakers arrived so late, they had 0 run-in. 0.
Wow.
When I powered them up Thursday morning doing setup, that was the first time they had ever played.
That's fun.
Outside the factory.
Yeah. So Troy, you can share my pain, right? I tell everybody 200 hours before I let you listen to it.
Right.
On everything that I sell. These had 0. So we set them up, and on Friday, Thursday during setup and Friday as well, I was not getting the bass that I knew I could get. So we actually turned the rels on like that. Yeah, the bittiest little bit. And then Friday night, we said, let's see if we have enough run-in. Because the nice thing about ESLs is typical speaker, 200 hours. Quite frankly, all the electronics that I sell, I say 200 hours. A cartridge or a stylus, 50. That's typically enough to break it in. The ESL, 25 to 50 hours is enough. So between Thursday and Friday, it hit that break-in point. And Friday night, we said, well, let's see what happens if we turn the rails off. It was actually better without. So Eddie pulled the power cord and the signal lead out and put it on the floor in front of them. Now, the problem is customers don't believe that. No, I see a red light. Yes, you do. It's the power light of the quad ESL. It's not the sub. So we finally lifted the subs out and put them on a shelf in the front of the room. So when people said, "Oh, you have any subs?" Well, we got two over there. They're not connected, right? And that made it a lot of fun. So, yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, it was impressive, especially for electrostats and bass. I mean, they had giant powered, Martin Logans downstairs that were also, very large panels, but they have woofers, sealed woofers on the bottom to do that work.
Beautiful story that I tell about quad ESL is there's no driver there.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult to match a conical woofer to an ESL and get them to work well. It's funny, and like Rel says, you shouldn't use Rel with a quad ESL. I don't agree. We got those dialed in beautifully. I love Rel. I use it at home with my Wharfdales. You can, but in this case, we didn't need it, which was great. And in a bigger room, you're going to have a limitation with the quads, obviously. But I can go to a room 2-3 times that size, and they'll be even better than they were in that room. And that's why I'm petitioning for a nicer room, both in Toronto and Montreal. We'll see what happens.
Well, hopefully the new space in Toronto gives you that opportunity, and you can showcase something nice there.
I got the floor plan from Sarah, and I sent her a list of like 6 or 8 rooms that I want.
Right.
And now the question is just, am I going to get them? We'll see.
We will. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Toronto. I mean, every show I visited many rooms, and I told people that, going to shows and doing the media, even though I'm running around for 3 days, it's my vacation from actual work.
Yeah.
So it's work, but it's better work. It's more fun work for me. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And with all the work that you guys have done, the rooms that you showcased, I also thank you for one weekend later coming on here and talking with an audience, whomever it's going to reach, and with me about all these things in audio that I guess we all aim to bring people to better understanding and better music in their lives, however they can reach it, right? With gear or understandings or knowledge or choices or how to spot the fakers out there. We give them all this information to try and bring, happier moments with music in people's lives. So I thank you both for being here. This is
happy to do it. And I'll just say again to anyone who happens to be listening, if you want to reach out to me for advice, I'm more than happy to provide it free of charge. My goal is to get people to listen to music. Someone, Pixel Castle 6440, says, is Quad the same company from the 80s and 90s? Yes and no. It's Quad, and it's still a British company. The head designer is Peter Como in England. The company was purchased by IAG, and it is manufactured in China. And I've had a bunch of people go, "Oh, that means it's not the same quad." And my answer to that is, you're right, it's better. The build quality is astoundingly good. And I'm not shy to say far, far better than it ever was in the original gear. The industrial design, the build is stunning. The sonics are stunning. It's fun stuff. So if you're into quad, it's cool.
Yeah. If the audience that we have has any other questions at this point, we've been here for, 2 hours, 14 minutes? Fantastic amount of time. I thank you guys for joining in. I didn't have any set time schedule or whatnot, so I do appreciate you sticking around and answering the questions for everybody. Really like quad gear. Okay, that's awesome. I need to say as well, something to verify and back up what you just said about it's the build quality is better, the gear's better, and it being from somewhere that a lot of people just criticize based on hearing the name. The idea of manufacturing in a place like China is they've rapidly increased their capability over the last number of years to keep up with many of the world's demands for manufacturing. So they have learned and put into place in some places. They have learned so much so fast and advanced well beyond some other places for manufacturing that now some things that are manufactured can't be manufactured anywhere else. That's how good they've become.
We can't. We've had the discussion. We
Yeah.
cannot manufacture it elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
We certainly can't do it for the same price.
And
when people, other people,
yeah.
Today, China is a leader.
Yep.
They're not a copycat. And for people who don't understand that, I always go to cars. So if you were a car guy decades ago, Hondas were rust buckets, Hyundais were rust buckets, so Korean, Japanese, etc. You're going to tell me that those are rust buckets now?
No.
Those companies are leading the charge in quality design, quality build. Things change. And, audiophiles sometimes, I was going to say forget that. They don't forget that. They don't want to admit it.
That's a good way to put it.
Good old days. No, they weren't.
Yeah.
They were good. And today, a lot of the stuff's better. Sorry, it is. I was alive in the good old days. I know quad from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, as I do for all the other brands that I work with and most of the brands out there. Things have changed. You can build stuff in lots of different places, and there's quality audio coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
From all over the place.
That's also very true.
Cool stuff.
Yeah. Everywhere in the world now. I've seen amps and brands from like Serbia, Poland. Obviously, some of the number one places like Denmark, but in all kinds of places and even smaller companies now, bespoke companies, being able to build in quality product and get out there. Now it's all over the world. Hi-fi is just coming alive. It's really, really cool. And I don't think that the old biases and opinions and gatekeeping needs to come along with it. I think that a lot of that can shed its skin and emerge into this like new world, kind of the new opportunity in the world in all of these different avenues, and just embrace and learn about it instead of just having these echoes going around. Seriously.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah. Two of these.
People, go ahead and read all you want and inform yourself. That's good. Go ahead and talk to people for all kinds of opinions, expert and whatnot. Fine. Listen to it.
There was a question in the chat. Is there a company brand from the past that you wish was still around? I'd like to answer that one. There was a company in the 90s, Waveform Audio, similar company to my own. They were a manufacturer of, at the time, the most expensive speaker in the world. It was the Mach 7, I believe it was called. So just the idea of a company from grassroots being built up as a craft is, one of my inspiration points. And so they were one of the first companies to utilize the NRC in their anechoic chamber. And they were very heavily focused on measurement towards, an end goal, sound quality. So that's a company that I wish was still around. Pretty cool company. They did the one where it was like an eggshell speaker. It looked like an egg, and it was all about reducing edge diffraction and that. And so there was a lot of science behind it. So yeah, that's mock waveform audio.
Nice.
Just briefly on the topic of, locally made. This morning, I was working with a supplier in Belleville who's making the copper pieces to our new amplifiers and trying to get them set up with a consistent manufacturing process. And so I told them this morning, I said, I could just easily source this out of China, but part of our marketing strategy is that it's locally made. And so I'm taking the time to like work with, it's hard in Eastern Ontario to source high quality audiophile level components, right? You almost have to build that with what's available locally and train, because my background's in engineering, process engineering, and so I'm having to train these suppliers and set them up with the proper equipment that they're going to need. But that builds skill locally. It supports local. The wood we get from Ottawa, and like everything as much as possible is supporting Ontario and Quebec. So I don't want to discount, the contribution of a business like mine to, the local home hardware and stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think in long term, and I really value that idea of like process engineering. I don't have the training of it, but I mean, just working in places and being mechanically inclined and being trained from many different manufacturing in multiple different kinds of disciplines, where it's electronics or food or whatever it is, it's from different areas. And looking at all of those processes, I really appreciate really good, thoughtful, and like continually learning process engineering, where if I see something that was done 30 years ago and the machine is still 30 years old or 40 years old, and the machines or whatever we're still making are that old, it's like there possibly could be a better way, but it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And I think I like the idea of like supporting local, because if you do the investment now with the patience and diligence, then it will exist here locally to support future businesses. And it will bring the whole kind of space into a different level of capability.
yeah, so
That's brilliant.
this here is a horn that we just made this week, and we were working directly with one of the high school co-op students, teaching them like actually how to make this, and we're pushing the limits on what you can make on a CNC. Like I think most woodworkers would look at this and scratch their heads on how the heck we made it. It was not easy. We were this week we were kind of laughing at ourselves, where we're ready to run the CNC and we don't even know if it's going to work or not. We're just like, well, we're just going to have to try it. And it's just that moment where you're once you teach somebody how to make this, right, that's going to stay with them for their entire career, right? Like, so
Yeah, skills like that are important. And I mean, the idea of 3D printing, for instance, 3D modeling, for instance, and how good some of the CNC machines are getting. That world of manufacturing and options to build out new things. Like I watch rocket engineering all the time, and how they're doing 3D modeling and AI modeling to bring out some of these new shapes that were never possible before. Some audio drivers now are done with the same thing in, what's the program called? Cosmo? I think it's called, as a 3D modeling program that they're using AI modeling for, like the same tech that F1 is using to make their wishbone and make the frame as light as possible and stiff as possible, and only material where it's needed. And Sonus Faber's got a basket that looks like that. Boris and Acoustics is using a 3D printed titanium basket, zirconium basket around their magnet structure, so there's no iron in it. Like it's like I said, capability and supporting it locally in even schools, like that's amazing, because it's going to pay forward giving our future more potential and more capability and more curiosity and pushing limits and like what else is possible? What else can we invent? I spoke to guys at B&W and I said, why do you not flaunt and wave around above your heads that biomimetic suspension on the mid-range driver? And it's it's one of the most significant things I've seen invented in audio in the last 10 plus years is a new type of spider system to eliminate the wave structure off of the suspension behind a mid-range. They didn't have it at the show. It wasn't displayed anywhere. Nobody else really talks about it. And in my mind, I'm like, this is the coolest shit I have ever seen. Except for like surround structures. Purify woofers have this really cool like bidirectional linearity surround, which people think looks broken, but I'm like, well, that's because you don't know what it's doing. I wish that these were the topics in audio that talk about like what's pushing audio into new capabilities. Reduce distortion, more capability in the drivers, more of the good stuff, less of the bad stuff, essentially. I wish that
I'll give you one of the reasons you don't hear about that sometimes, not always, is because there are two schools. There's gearheads, there's music heads. So when you're marketing, when you're designing, when you're talking, when you're promoting out at shows, you can do both, or you can focus on one and not on the other. And I don't know if it's a trend, but I'm seeing some companies, and I love it, talk a lot less about tech stuff and more about what it does for you. Talk about the music. A problem that happens in shops and at shows is that sometimes the presenter or the salesperson, consultant, whatever you want to call them, is busy with speeds and feeds, talking about the tech this, the tech that, the Google. Who cares? I don't mean nobody cares. If you're talking to the music person, they don't care. What does this sound like? Now, if you're talking to a gear person who's into it, then that's cool. But you need to decide who you're talking to. And if you don't know who you're talking to, going into technical jargon is typically not a good idea. So I think that's what, like, especially at a show, over the years, I've been saying this for years, bring me more human beings instead of audiophiles.
Well,
and I don't mean audiophiles are bad. Some of them are, but I don't mean that they're bad. What I mean is I want to introduce good sound to normal people who just want good sound. They might know they want good sound. They might not know they want good sound, but that's what I'm looking for. And as a company, that's what I urge my companies to do. So
can I just say something?
And there's a time for technical, like this.
The most
maybe
significant,
you do a tech head event. Sorry, go ahead, Troy.
The most significant developments in the past 2 decades have been at the driver level, and companies like ScanSpeak, Purify, Cease, they've really kind of pushed the limits on what a driver can do as far as low noise, low distortion. So there's a few levels removed when you go to the speaker manufacturer, where a lot of times they are just off the shelf from those driver manufacturers, and then you have distribution and dealerships. And so there's not an appreciation at the dealer level of the amount of science behind the driver and its overall contribution to the subjective sound quality. So there's Lars Risbo from Purify. You can watch his videos. He's just properly geeked out over. He's got like neodymium in the pole piece, and he's got a pound of copper in the motor. Right. And
I love it.
So and so there's that world of science that is ultimately about the listening experience, right?
Yeah, it's making it more pure, I guess.
But it's 2 or 3 kind of supply levels removed from, the end consumer. So, yeah, it's
like talking F1 racing for the person that just wants to get to work in the morning and their car functions properly. Like, hey, they're connected. All of the racing that was ever done throughout most of its, racing history, all that technology trickled down to your Corolla.
yeah,
100%. Tire tech, wheel tech, brake tech,
Right.
all
but
of
if
that
you don't
stuff.
care, you
They
don't
don't
want to hear
care.
that.
No.
Then you don't want to hear it.
No.
If you don't care. If you're I'm a car guy. I want to know everything. Tell me about every inch of the suspension. Tell me, and I'm an F1 guy, so I want to do that. But if you don't care, you shouldn't be receiving this gobbledygook because
Yeah.
it's meaningless. And then the funny thing is, I hate to say this, I might get in trouble for it, but I'm a troublemaker. That's the name of my podcast, Troublemaker Audio. There are too many people who work in this business. Salespeople, consultants in shops, representatives, manufacturers. They don't understand the basics of audio. I talk to people who don't understand, they think they do, but they don't understand that watts are a piece of the story. Wattage is voltage and current. A high current amplifier will beat the pants off of a high wattage amplifier that doesn't have a lot of current. If you don't know that, you might be talking about specs that are pointless. And then if you want to start talking about how the thing is built, well, if you don't understand the basic of wattage and current, I'm going to start talking to you about how the transformer is built, the difference between a toroidal and a square. We talk about windings. Now, most of the people that I deal with are like, I don't care. Does it sound good? Does it have a lot of bass? I like bass. So we have to be careful when we talk. I think it would be really fun to do a tech show for techies.
It would be.
Go ahead. Go and ask all the cuckoo tech questions you want. The problem is they'll probably turn into a war. And that it's like do a cable show and please don't invite me.
It's not a bad idea actually. I'm gonna slowly wrap this up because we are at 2.5. But this statement here, I think this is what we're all kind of getting at is you have to know your audience regardless of, let's say, topic. It says speaker, but topic. Comedians know this. Lecturers know this. Professors will know this.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I agree. Know your audience. The problem is we usually don't.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
So my advice, please, 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 to everyone who works in this business, ask questions.
Yeah.
You don't know your audience. Hey, would you like me to go into the technical gobbledygook or would you like me to just tell you how it sounds?
Yeah.
My comment wasn't really in the context of the end consumer. It was general knowledge within the audio industry about the contribution of measurements and as a scientific approach to achieving what you're hearing. I do think there's an underappreciation of what goes into the development of drivers from ScanSpeak, for example, and how distortion, for example, is one of the metrics that's used to determine the end product, right? There's just a lot of this idea floating around that measurements are optional, that it's really at the end of the day what sounds best. I would say that I'm a firm believer that the measurements come first when you're talking about the early stages of development, and in particular when it comes to driver design, because if there's problems, it directly affects the sound quality.
100%, and I agree with you. The key point that you just said, and I'm sure it glossed over most people, is that's from a design point of view. From a buying point of view, it's all about what does it sound like.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and get all the test equipment you want, measure it all day long, and show me or prove to me how flat your curve is. Well, you know what? If it sounds like crap, it sounds like crap, regardless of your curve. To your point, in your world, you have to do that because that's where you start. And I know that they don't.
I'll give you an example because I don't share any test data with the audiophile market because it's completely irrelevant. They have to come and hear it. That's the deciding factor. But I think it's good for people in the industry to understand that it was measurement that got that product to sound like that. It's not an accident.
Yeah. There's still a lot. I'll reference my mom. And my mom was a huge music lover and sang in the car and sang at home and danced when, that kind of thing. And I got our Bluetooth speaker one time and I'm in this world. I try to talk about why it's better or whatever. She's like, shut up, just put some music on. That's the audience, and I didn't have to hear anymore because I care about what she enjoys, and I made a playlist. I'm like, I'll make it easier for you to find the music you want. You just change topics because it's really about bringing the joy. Now I'm a nerd. I love the physics of it. I could geek out for hours. I could defend it too, but it's not always. That's bark up the wrong tree, pick your fight. Right. For me, it looks like the world of audio is like pushing your face through the boundary of still water. You're in the air, you're looking through, you can see the reflection, you can see through the water, and you push into the water, and there's this whole other world in the water. It's like fish and us, right? And we're looking down, they're breathing air through the water, looking up. The reflections look similar, but it's like two different worlds, but they're shared reality, right? Where one affects the other reflects the other, and they're both interchangeable.
There's a massive dichotomy in this world that I live in the fact that I have to wear two hats. One hat is the dispassionate scientist that is just trying to make an object work. And then the flip side is the music lover that wants to just actually bawl my eyes out because I'm listening to this choir sing, right? And it's all about passion. It's crazy. There's this two ends of the spectrum, right? And they do meet, but
yeah. I've said it as a person who's trained others at my workplace and have learned under others in school and education and all that kind of thing, is I say that good teachers are hard to come by. And the ones that I find the best made me want to learn more and made me comfortable learning something I didn't have any idea about. They were really good at finding a way to talk through a topic, to demonstrate that topic for me. They're good teachers are good at being able to do that, and they're able to pick up on what I like, how do I work. They'll pick through these things. Not everyone's a good teacher. That's fine. I acknowledge my weaknesses. I don't try to do those things. And it's just something that I acknowledge in this space. And to some of the points we've talked about today, that there are pretending experts out there that some people are learning from. And that makes, funny enough, what I call noise in the community. Now, we're a community that spends our entire lives trying to figure out how to eliminate the noise from our systems, but end up making social noise talking about the hobby. So I'm like, if we could just eliminate that by having the right things to talk about and allowing the ones that are good at sharing the best information we have available, it would improve everybody's journey.
Well, that should be the goal.
Right. I continue to bring in those that I trust here to talk to an audience, and hopefully we can all amplify that message with every ounce that we can spare.
I'd like to do that right now and address Pixel Castle 6440. If you're talking about a home theater system, Dirac is fine. If you're talking about two-channel audio, REW, Room EQ Wizard, and Dirac, do me a favor and turn them off. Throw them in the garbage.
Amen.
Use
Yeah,
your
I agree.
ears to tune two-channel.
Tune your room with your ear.
Yeah, that's my
Speakers,
advice too.
Placement, equipment choice, furnishings for two-channel, that's how you need to do it. Was it Einstein's theory of relative? Every action, there's an equal opposite reaction.
Newton.
Okay. When you use DSP and fix a problem over there, you've created one over here. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gone in and said, hey, you think you've done a good job and it's very nice. However, the decay, the harmonics, they're all gone because you got rid of the boom, the rattle, the bloom, the whatever. And again, I'm always, if that works for you, so be it.
Mm.
But if you allow me to show you the difference, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a difference, it's an improvement. Was it Newton?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Laws of motion.
It's just, to your point, Joe, there's so much to learn about audio.
Yes.
So much that people don't understand. There are so many misconceptions. People do stuff and think they're doing something good because it made a change. It didn't.
Or someone said it somewhere, and there's all kinds of different kind of data points and measurements and opinions and demonstrations of
without
stuff.
DSP, I'm talking to Pixel.
Yeah.
Same way.
It's acoustics is what it is. It's physics.
And again, I'm talking two-channel audio. In home theater, DSP a go-go. You have to dial things in appropriately with multiple speakers, multiple amplifiers,
Right.
multiple things going on. You do two-channel audio, forget DSP, even on a sub. And someone was asking me in the room, oh, gee, how come, whoever doesn't do that auto-calibrate with their sub? Because it's not good. That's why. Because you fix something and you take something away in the process. And if you do it by ear, which it's trial and error and it takes forever, and you need to kind of know what you're doing, and it's, there's placement, there's lots of things, but that's the goal. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. Maybe you have to DSP because maybe the sub has to be over there, and maybe the speaker has to be 2 inches from the back wall. Okay, I can't fix that now. I need DSP. But if you give me the chance to do it physically, it's going to sound better and it's going to sound natural. Anyway, as you've learned, I'm a big mouth. I'm going to shut up.
We'll come around we'll do round 2 next weekend, and we'll get into a fight then.
Sounds like fun.
In the comments, I'm sure over the next week we'll find all kinds of topics to fight people on. Well, thank you guys for being here tonight. I do wish my audience a great night. I wish you guys a great night as well. I think this almost 2 hours and 45 minutes of audio talk and sharing our experiences is quite enough for people to chew on. I really hope people make it this far. And if you do afterwards, I want people to write the word carrot in the comments. If you make it this far into the episode, I will be impressed if I see that word.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. That's my first time on someone else's live.
Oh,
so it's pretty cool.
Hey, Sylvain was here.
Still here. Still here for the last number. And I have to post, I got a brilliant interview, two versions of the interview, one in French and then one in English, for walking through his new turntable in the Martin Logan room. So amazing. I want to get those out. I need to get all my interviews out, but like as many people know, I think I had like 800 gigs of data that I recorded. So that is coming. It's I think it will be amazing and good moment for a lot of people to learn something there. So yes, so thank you guys, and I wish you good night, and
It was fun. Good night.
everybody else, thank you for being here and contributing to such a thing. And if it's a good success and people want more, then let me know you want more. I'll try to wrangle some people from the industry.
I just want to say one thing. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So please ask.
Yes.
I'd love to help.
Yes. Ask questions of any kinds to the best kinds of people to ask.
Yeah.
All right.
Make sure
so
they're,
to
make sure
everybody,
they're qualified.
yes, qualified. Ask the qualified people. Don't ask Grok or ChatGPT because they might not. They're not even human. They can't hear. Why would you ask something that doesn't have ears?
Yeah, well, it's just skimming my website anyway, so why not just ask me directly?
Yeah, taking everybody's content, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, have a good night, everybody, and to you guys, we'll just hang out for 2 minutes afterwards. So,
All right.
Okay.
bye, everyone. Have a great night. We'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves.
So long, audience.